tranquility. And the ladies, headed by the wife of Advaita Acharya, she liked the name Nimai. So those two names stuck, Vishwambar and Nimai. Then he went by many other names. Gauranga, Gora, and so forth. So on the screen you're going to see the pranam mantra that we regularly recite when we do our offering of obeisances to Lord Chaitanya. So those of you that like to say the verse, you can say it with me. Namo Mahabhadanyaya Krishna Prema Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namani Gaura Tushe Namaha. And the translation, I offer my respectful obeisances unto the Supreme Lord, Sri Krishna Chaitanya, who is more magnanimous. We spent a fair amount of time the other day describing Vadanya. Magnanimous, munificent, very charitable, more magnanimous than any other avatar, even Krishna himself, because he is bestowing freely what no one else has ever given, pure love of Krishna. Now, pure love of Krishna, or Krishna Prema, is very specific, double specific. One, the Prema that's found in Vrindavan, Braja Prema. And we've been hearing also, specifically, a prayer to Lord Chaitanya by Rupa Goswami, the love of the cowherd damsels of Braja, freely giving. Now we spent some time, the Mahaprabhu, that achieved that gift that he wanted to give. They just have to say yes and receive it and live it. And that gift is the gift of Braja Prem. But when they receive that gift of Braja Prem, they also enter into the Svetadweep region of the spiritual sky. It doesn't say that technology, not that the soul splits into two souls, but those who become perfect by the mercy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's gift of Braja Prem enter into Goloka Vrindavan and into the Svetadweep region, both, and take part eternally in the Sankirtan pastimes of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, along with the eternal pastimes of Krishna in either Vrindavan, Mathura, or Dwarka. So keep your seatbelts fastened, Prabhus. We're in for a big journey going to the spiritual world. There, according to Chaitanya Charitamrita, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami explains, there are three purposes or reasons for Lord Chaitanya's advent. External, 3, and internal, 3. We're going to discuss them just now. So one of those 3 was, as you see in this painting, you recognize with the nice white beard, the Vaishnava named Advaita Acharya. Now he's not on our altar, but he's on the altar in Mayapur, water and tulsi leaves. So he sat by the side of the Ganges, and not just water, but Ganges water and tulsi leaves, and worshipped his Shalagram Shila, calling out very loudly for the Supreme Personality of Godhead to appear and correct the situation on earth during this age of Kali. So this is very early in the age of Kali. So that was one of the 3 reasons. The loud cries of Advaita Acharya for him to appear. One of the purposes was to respond. The second purpose is to manifest the Yuga Dharma. The Yuga Dharma In Satya Yuga, the first of the 4 yugas, is meditation. In the next of the 4 yugas, Treta Yuga, is sacrifice, performing fire sacrifice and worshipping Vishnu through fire sacrifice. And in the following age, Dwapara Yuga, the age in which Krishna appeared, is temple worship, archana process. And in the Kali Yuga is chanting of the holy name, japa or sankirtan. And so Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came to inaugurate, this is one of his 3 reasons, to establish the Yuga Dharma. Generally speaking, the Yuga avatar comes at the very early stages of the Yuga to set the standard. So that's what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu did, and the others also did. Appeared early in each of the ages. And in Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's case, with his Sangopangastra Parshadam, with his various associates and astras, the musical instruments were his astras. He didn't have, well, he had Sudarshan Chakra, but he didn't use it. He almost used it. Jaghai and Madhai. But the Sankirtan was the main weapon, or astra, and his associates. And here he is in Navadvip, here he is in Jagannath Puri. Pictured here as a sannyasi. According to the scripture, he was in the Varna. In this case, Varna means the group, Krishna Varnam, but his complexion was not Trisha Krishna, was not Krishna's blackish color. Sangos Pangastra Parshadam Yagyai Sankirtana Prayayar Yajantihi Samedasa. This is a section of the Bhagavatam from the 11th canto where the Yuga avatars are being described. So this one, in the age of Kali, intelligent persons perform congregational chanting to worship the incarnation of Godhead who, that's Lord Chaitanya, who constantly sings the name of Krishna. Although his complexion is not blackish, he is Krishna himself. So this is an important understanding. So I'll repeat it. Krishna appeared in this age of Kali in a golden form. And in that golden form, he exhibited this pastime of establishing the Yuga Dharma. And he's accompanied by his associates, servants, weapons, and confidential companions. He's not just an avatar, but he's the avatari. What's the distinction? Avatar means one who descends. And avatari means the one from whom the avatars descends. He is the original source of all incarnations, as he is, because he is also non-different than Krishna. He is Krishna, appearing in the mood of the devotee of Krishna. This is where the reference is, if you'd like to look it up. So that was the second reason, to establish the Yuga Dharma. And the third reason was Krishna keeps his promise, and in Bhagavad Gita he makes promise that he would appear whenever there's Dharma Glani, or discrepancy in Dharma. You know the verse, so we can say it together. There's 2 of them. It's chapter 4, Bhagavad Gita. Yada yada hi dharmasya glanir bhavati bharata abhyutanam adharmasya tadatmanam srajamyaham. Srajamyaham. He manifests himself from time to time. Yada yada. When there's dharmasya glanir, when there's discrepancy in Dharma, then he comes to restore Dharma. Abhyutanam adharmasya tadatmanam srajamyaham. And the very next verse, chapter 4, please say together with me. Paritranaya sadhunam vinashaya chaduskritam dharma sangstapanartaya sambhavami yuge. There we go, sambhavami yuge yuge. From age to age, from time to time, he does these three things when there's necessity. And so that's his third reason, external. The way that Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami describes this in Chaitanya Charitamrita, there's external, or what's visible to everybody, and then there's internal, what's not visible to everybody, what's within him, what's in his heart. So I'll give a little description. This is the way that Chaitanya Charitamrita, there's much more detail, but Krishna considered how much love does Radharani have for me? What are the feelings that she experiences in her love for me? And what are the qualities that she sees in me that inspires that love? I'm the Supreme Personality of Godhead. I'm all-powerful and omniscient. And I tried. I've tried, all-powerful, all-knowing, and I can't experience that love that Radha has for me. And the reason is because one must be the subject to experience the object. The lover, to experience the beloved, needs to be in the position of the lover, not understand because you're the beloved. What's the happiness of the lover? So in this way, Krishna was considering the way that this can be fulfilled is if I appear myself in the mood of Radha. And not only the mood of Radha, but the complexion or duty of Radha. Radha bhava duty subalitam naumi Krishna swarupam. The nice Sanskrit verse. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is Krishna himself, with a golden bodily luster and the mood or bhava of Radharani. That's who Lord Chaitanya is. And so the internal purpose, one more time, he wanted to experience the love that Radha has for him. He wanted to experience the joy that she experiences in her love for him. And Krishna wanted to experience how she sees the qualities in him that inspire her loving sentiments for him. And so Krishna, the internal reason, appeared as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Krishna himself, in the luster and the bhava, the duty and the bhava of Radharani. Did I show this yesterday? Yes. So maybe some of you weren't here yesterday. It's a very nice illustration of Lord Chaitanya externally having the appearance of a sannyasi and internally having the mood of Srimati Radharani. Very nice, huh? It's said that this particular painting of Lord Chaitanya was commissioned by King Prataparudra by a very skilled artist to make a painting that actually looked like Lord Chaitanya. Now, I don't know if that's true, but it's certainly a very, very beautiful painting. So here's Radharani at the feet of Krishna, loving Krishna, worshiping Krishna, experiencing what she's experiencing. And Krishna wanted to experience what she's experiencing. And so he assumed this form of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and entered deeply and profoundly, deeply, more and more and more deeply into the mood of Radharani and the gopis' love for Krishna. Now this is showing he's sleeping, but many times he didn't sleep. He was just in a state of ecstatic love. And so there's a beautiful painting, just weeping. You can see the tears of separation. Krishna feeling the mood of loving separation from Radha from Krishna. Very special. And he appeared in Navadvip. This nice painting depicts his stature was very tall, and his arms were very long. It is said his arms reached down to his knees, and when he raised his arms and sang kirtan, it was ecstatic. Everyone immediately began dancing and feeling ecstasy, and he engaged in the same activity with his dear brother, Nityananda. Whoever's the mother of this small child can please take the small child somewhere. Children are sweet, but they like to make noise. Now, along this line, to give you a nice depiction of the character and qualities of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, we spent one whole evening, Saturday evening, discussing about Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya's deliverance. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya is pictured here. He was a householder, and he is being described in Chaitanya Charitamrita as the most learned person in the world. And who's that? Who's the most learned person in the world today? Some years ago, people would say Albert Einstein. But he didn't know scripture. But Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya was very vastly learned. And he was a grahastha. And at the same time, while he was a grahastha, he was engaging thousands of sannyasis as his students to teach them the scriptures. He's very qualified. And so when Lord Chaitanya came to Puri, he saw this 25-year-old beautiful sannyasi. How is he going to maintain his sannyas vows? I'll take him on as a special student, so he'll be protected to maintain his sannyas vows. There's details and details we discussed. But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu accepted, this is so kind of you. So the Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, literally for 7 days, morning till evening, next day, morning till evening, 7 days in a row, morning till evening, he was just giving lessons on Vedanta Sutra. And on the 8th morning, he said to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, you don't say anything. I don't know if you're understanding or not understanding. And so Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, I understand Vedanta Sutra very well, but as I hear your speaking, it's clouding the meaning more and more. Oh? Well, if you understand Vedanta Sutra, then you please explain it to me. And it didn't take days, it took minutes. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gave a very simple and direct understanding instead of the indirect understanding from the Shankaracharya school. And Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya was astonished. He said, I've never heard anything like this before. That was wonderful. You're so learned. Is it possible you can explain to me the Atmarama verse from Srimad Bhagavatam? Now, some of you have been around a while, so you know what that verse is. The context of that verse is Shukadev Goswami was a perfectly realized soul. And yet he took the trouble to study Srimad Bhagavatam from his father. So the question was raised, why did he study Srimad Bhagavatam from his father? Because he was already realized. Why did he have to study anything? Because he's already realized. He had realized his spiritual identity. And the answer given is the Atmarama verse. Even if someone understands the Atma or the soul, they will also find great pleasure in hearing the message of Srimad Bhagavatam because the message of Srimad Bhagavatam goes into another dimension altogether. The other dimension altogether is not just understanding the soul, but understanding the soul's eternal relation with the Supreme Soul and the loving exchange. That's what Srimad Bhagavatam does. And Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya wanted to hear Lord Chaitanya's explanation. Lord Chaitanya said, "You're such a scholar. I'd like to hear that from you." Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya was a little proud, and he was very well. I'll explain this verse, but I'll explain it in 9 different ways. And on and on and on and on and on. He explained in 9 different ways. It's right in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. And then he asked, "Could you explain?" I said, "Yes." So Lord Chaitanya explained in 16 different ways, not touching on any one of the 9 different ways that Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya expressed. And get the picture. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya is not just a smart man. He's the most learned person on the planet. And when he heard this explanation of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he was stunned. The light went on. And he said, "You're not just a young sannyasi that's very scholarly. You're the personality of Godhead. That I can understand from the way that you've explained all of this." And what did Chaitanya Mahaprabhu do? He smiled and he showed Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya his form, his spiritual form of Krishna and Lord Ramachandra and Mahaprabhu. This is the Sadbhuj or 6-armed form. There we see Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya prostrating himself before the 6-armed form of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And he was in ecstasy. His whole body was trembling. And shortly thereafter, because he was so scholarly, he wrote down 100 verses in Sanskrit glorifying Lord Chaitanya. And one of them is a favorite. And here it is. And because this group doesn't chant the way that I chant, so I'll just chant it myself. Vairagya vidya nija bhakti yoga shikshartam ekam purushak puranaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Sharira Dhari Kripam Bodhiryas Tamaham Prapadye. So that's a nice sounding verse. The Vairagya Vidya is the first 2 words in this verse composed by him. He taught, or he exemplified, both knowledge and detachment. Vairagya is detachment. In the Upanishads, these 2 are common together, knowledge and detachment. Yes? Jnana and Vairagya. So Vairagya Vidya, Nija Bhakti Yoga. Nija means his own. Nija Bhakti Yoga. Shikshartam. This was his teaching. And he alone, Eka, was Purusha Purana, the oldest original Supreme Person. He's accepted this Sharira Dhari, this form of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Sri Krishna Chaitanya, and by his giving love and knowledge and detachment like this, Kripambudhir, he's an ocean of mercy. Ambudhi means ocean, and Kripa means mercy. I prapadyate. prapadye, I take shelter of him. Let me take shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna. This is Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya's, one of his 100 verses glorifying Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. It's found in Chaitanya Charitamrita and is often quoted by the followers of Lord Chaitanya. Let me take shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, who has descended in the form of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to teach us real knowledge, his devotional service, and detachment from whatever does not foster Krishna consciousness. He has descended because he's an ocean of transcendental mercy. Let me surrender unto his lotus feet. So these are just some of the nice things to say about the Gaur Purnima, the appearance of the personality of Godhead, Krishna himself, in this age of Kali, specifically in the yuga that immediately follows Krishna's appearance. Now, many of you know this. I'll just say it anyways. Krishna comes once in every day of Brahma. And just after Krishna appears, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appears. Krishna comes towards the end of Dwapar Yuga, and the beginning of Kali Yuga, Krishna comes again as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. When he comes as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he's teaching how to fulfill the instruction that Krishna gives in Bhagavad Gita. What's the instruction? Sarvadharmam parityaja aham tvam sarva papebhyo mokshayashami ma suchaha. So people in this age of Kali won't know how to, unless they're given a nice example and teachings. So Mahaprabhu came to do both, to give how to, his teachings and his example. And the primary method is the Sankirtan, the chanting, congregational chanting of the holy name of the Lord. So there's Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in his form as a grahastha, again with tears in his eyes, and he appeared on the full moon night, just like tonight. That's how we know it's the appearance day, because it's a full moon. By lunar calculation, it changes by solar calculation, but by lunar calculation he appeared in this particular night. And the custom, the culture at the time of Mahaprabhu's appearance, when there was a lunar eclipse, persons who wouldn't chant Krishna's name would enter the Ganges up to their waist and loudly call out Krishna's name. So as the eclipse was becoming a full eclipse, that's the very moment he appeared, and loudly, uproariously, like a football stadium or something, loudly calling out Krishna's name. So that's the circumstance of his appearance. And a few more slides. After he appeared, there was many, as the culture of the time, persons would come to visit the mother and the father and bear gifts. And one of those persons depicted in this painting is the wife of Advaitacharya. The wife of Advaitacharya was Sita Devi. And Sita Devi, just seeing this child, you can see from the painting, she thought, he looks just like Krishna, except his complexion is golden. And she knew that Mother Sachi, think of those of you who are mothers, she had 8 daughters that shortly after they were born, they died. Poor Mother Sachi. And she had one son that survived. His name was an elder brother, and the younger son she gave the name Nimai because the child was born under a neem tree. And in Vedic culture, neem is really good for digestion. Did you know that? In Bengal, everybody in Bengal knows. It's one of the first things people, when you offered a meal, neem chutney, there's a name for it. What's it called? Nimbu? No, neem pata. It's really bitter. Really bitter. But there's a reason for it. What's the reason for it? The first thing you eat is something bitter because it awakens the fire of digestion or the digestive juices in the stomach. Bhakti Churu Swami always would, when he would serve devotees prasada, that was the first thing, it's a bitter neem. So it's good for digestion, but it's also understood in Bengal culture that neem or the neem tree, it gives protection and safety. So she wanted him to be known as Nimai because Mother Sachi lost 8 daughters, that this child be protected. Thus Nimai. Samadhi, Pushpa Samadhi of Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Because Bhaktivinoda Thakur discovered the birthplace. There's details which I'm not going to go into. But on the right side, there's the building, and inside the building, there's a murti of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, and the Pushpa Samadhi, that is where his actual Samadhi was, there were flowers placed on his body, and some of those flowers were taken and placed here. The Pushpa Samadhi. And to the other side, when you walk in the front gate, you'll see on the left side of the entrance is a Samadhi of one of Bhaktisiddhanta's disciples who became a Babaji. Sakhi Charan Das, and his murti is there. When Bhaktivinoda Thakur found this place, there's lots of details, but this isn't a class about Bhaktivinoda. He built a temple, and this is the temple that he built. Very simple, but just to have a temple. And he established deities in this temple, and he instructed his son to build a larger temple. So there's the larger temple. And inside the front gate, if you keep walking past this white building, the temple building, and keep walking, you'll see the neem tree. Is not the original one, but it's the neem tree under which Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was born. And if you look behind that neem tree, you'll see a structure. That structure was the exact spot where Nimai was born. And inside that structure, there's these murtis of Jagannath Mishra and Sachi Mata holding Nimai on her lap. And if you look closely, you can see on the very left corner of this photograph, you see another kind of pinkish structure. Here's that pinkish structure. It's a small temple of Lord Shiva. You see on the top in the dome, there's a trident. It's a temple of Lord Shiva. And one of those deities inside was established by Bhaktivinoda Thakur, the taller one on the right, Kshetra Pal. Pala means to protect. Kshetrapal, the protector of the Dham. So Lord Shiva gives protector of the Dham. And Bhaktisiddhanta established the one on the left, our left, a smaller one. That's Gopeshwara, where Lord Shiva accepted a gopi form. There's lots of history behind this, or story. But he, Lord Shiva, was given a gopi form so he could observe Krishna's rasa dance. Krishna saw this really big gopi. He said, "You can guard the rasa dance." So that's Gopeshwara Mahadev. Now we're going to go to the temple, and here's the main altar. There's 3 altars, and the back side is Radha Madhava, and on our left, or the deity's right, is Mahaprabhu. Now these are very tall, very merciful deities that have been worshipped since the time of Bhaktivinoda Thakur. And the central altar is what you see here. This is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in the center. and his two wives. First wife, Lakshmi Priya, second wife, Vishnu Priya. And if you look closely, right at the feet of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, there's a Shalagram Shila. It happens to be the Shalagram Shila that Jagannath Mishra worshipped, the father of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. I'll tell you a little of that story, because we're going to see a close-up of the Adhoksaja Vishnu Shila. And the far right is a set of deities that Bhaktisiddhanta personally installed. It's showing the Panchatattva, and of course Lord Jagannath in front, and then another smaller festival deity of Lord Chaitanya. Probably just as we did. Most likely they were also performing Abhishek of the festival deity. Now look on the left side, where there's Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and the two wives, Lakshmi Priya, Vishnu Priya, and the Adhoksaja Vishnu Shila. Here's a close-up. Here's the history. There's a longer version. I'm going to tell you the short version. The short version is, when Bhaktisiddhanta, under his father's indication, was excavating the foundation for this temple, the big white structure that you saw, as they dug and dug and dug into the earth, they found this Adhoksaja Vishnu deity. And here's the history, part of the history. After Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's departure, the Ganges, historical record shows, the Ganges shifted course. It moved easterly direction, meaning the birthplace of Mahaprabhu was east of the Ganges. When the Ganges moved in an easterly direction, his birthplace was submerged in under the river. And so years and years and years and years passed, and the Adhoksaja Vishnu deity that Jagannath Mishra worshipped was in the mud at the bottom of the Ganges. After some time, the Ganges shifted back to a course similar to its original time, and when this excavation took place, they found the Adhoksaja Vishnu deity of Jagannath Mishra. Isn't that nice? It was an archaeological evidence to confirm the fact that Bhaktivinoda Thakur understood by his spiritual acumen that this was in fact the birthplace of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Confirmed. In the back side, we're going to continue. If you keep walking, there's a mandap, a kirtan hall, and keep going in the further back. There was a samadhi. There is a samadhi that Bhaktivinoda Thakur established for his wife. We don't hear so much about Bhagavati, but if you visit there, you'll see there's a sign and it says, this is Bhaktivinoda Thakur respecting his wife so much at the birthplace of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Her samadhi is there. Sometime later, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur established two sets of deities. One of them, you see pictured here, Gaur Gadadhar deities, and on another side is Lord Nrsingadev and Lakshmi, or Lakshmi Nrsinga, established by Bhaktisiddhanta, at the same place as the samadhi of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, his wife. She was honored very nicely. Here's a nice photograph, a closer image of Jagannath Mishra and Mother Sachi inside that little structure. I'm going to narrate a little bit of his childhood pastimes. Now, we spent an hour and a half, details and details and details of his childhood pastimes. But during his time in Navadvip, before he accepted sannyas, his childhood activities were first of all scholarly and not so devotional on purpose, by design. But when he took Diksha from his spiritual master, Ishwar Puri, his whole mood changed. Many, many things happened, and one of those things that happened was the congregational Sankirtan. Here's a nice detail. One time, he was visiting a Brahmana who was offering prayers to Lord Shiva. And hearing the devotion that he had for Lord Shiva, beating on his din-din drum, Mahaprabhu manifested the mood of Lord Shiva and got on the Brahmana's shoulders and had him dance as he was dancing around the room. And the Brahmana was very, very happy. And Lord Chaitanya eventually came to external consciousness and said, from this day forward, let us have Nam Sankirtan at the house of Srivas Pandit. And so that's how it started. So every day, every day, every day, every day, every day. However, the persons who were envious weren't allowed to enter. And the persons who were envious started complaining to the Chandkazi. Now, during this time, he was a chief magistrate. Kazi was a title for someone who is the magistrate. Magistrate means, in our Western culture, it means he's like a judge. But in Vedic culture at the time, he was more than a judge. He was like just below the king. There's the king, and there's the representative of the king in a particular jurisdiction. And he was given the magistrate position and the title Kazi, Chand Kazi. And the people started complaining to Chand Kazi, saying, this Nimai, he's spoiling our culture. You got to do something. Whoever heard this singing and dancing and carrying on all night long, it's just a nuisance. And they complained and complained and complained. So finally, he told them to stop. They didn't stop. And the people complained, so he came and he broke one of the mridangas. Told him, you better stop, we're going to put you in jail. When that news went to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, what? They broke the mridanga? So you see in the painting, in short notice, in one day's notice, 10,000 people came with torches and went from marketplace to marketplace to marketplace throughout the whole of Navadvip, loudly chanting the holy name. And by nighttime, they lit their torches and they went right to the palace of Chandkazi. Angry Bengalis. You're Bengali, right? 10,000 angry Bengalis. He hid himself in his palace. It specifically said he hid under his bed. He was afraid. And Mahaprabhu coaxed him to come down, so he came down, said, we're amongst friends, don't worry. They had a nice discussion, very peaceful discussion. The discussion was about why, could you explain to me, this is Nimai Pandit saying to Chandkazi, can you describe why your religion says it's okay to eat your mother? He said, why you say it like that? Because the cow is your mother. And you kill cows and you eat your mother. So what kind of religion is this? So they had a discussion without all the back and forth. And Chandkazi accepted what his point was. So it's just part of our religion. It's just part of our religion. What to say is part of our religion. Then, because the conversation was amicable enough, although there's 10,000 angry Bengalis behind him, he said, I wanted to say something to you in private. And he said, we're amongst friends, you can say it here. So he said, last night, as I was getting ready to take rest, this fierce form, half man, half lion, pounced on my chest and started ripping my chest with his nails. roaring very loudly. I was so afraid. And he said, I'll spare you just now, but you never again stop the Sankirtan, the chanting of the holy names of Hari, or you're finished. And he said, he opened his shirt and showed the marks on his chest of the nails of Lord Nrsingadev, bifurcating his chest. So he said, from this time forward, during my rule as Kazi, and any of my descendants that may take this position also, the chanting, the congregational chanting of the holy name can go on in Navadvip, and there'll be no impediment. Mission accomplished, right? So this is just one of his pastimes as a young householder. Now, because it's the occasion of Lord Chaitanya's appearance, later, here's a nice passage. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, although he made his appearance in Navadvip, here's a nice passage. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu always appeared in 4 places: in the household temple of Mother Sachi, in the places where Sri Nityananda Prabhu danced, in the house of Srivas Pandit during congregational chanting, and in the house of Raghava Pandit. Now, Raghava Pandit was a dear devotee, without details, but it's a whole section describing the life of Raghava Pandit. He was just so devoted, very meticulously devoted to Lord Chaitanya. So he had such love that, as it says, he appeared because of his attraction to the love of his devotees. That is his natural characteristic. So we're almost done. Here's a nice painting of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu during his household period. We know that because it has long hair, by the side of the Ganges. And halfway through his life, he lived only for 48 years, remained on earth for 48 years. And the final portion of his life was in this renounced order, living in solitude in Jagannath Puri, going deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper into amazing moods of ecstasy. As Radharani was feeling separation from Krishna, so he was also feeling those same loving sentiments. He fulfilled his internal purpose, experiencing the love that Radha has for him, experiencing the happiness within that love that she experiences, and appreciating the qualities in Krishna that she relishes, that incite or inspire her transcendental love. So if you don't have Chaitanya Charitamrita, recommended, get a copy of Chaitanya Charitamrita. I just had a little exchange with a devotee today, and he and another group are just, since for the last 2 weeks, they've been reading every day Chaitanya Charitamrita, and they're experiencing such happiness. Now, it's very elevated, but there's a happiness that even if it's very elevated, it's palpable, you can feel it. You can feel it. So I encourage you. Although it's Gaur Purnima, it's just like now we're going to move on to the next festival and the next festival. The Lord Chaitanya's pastimes are very wonderful and very instructive. So I encourage you. It's available online as well in Vedabase, but holding the book in your hand and reading it is special. So that's my discussion for this evening. And I'm looking at the clock and it's already 8 o'clock. So we should end, or we should take a question or two? I think we'll end. Okay, thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ki. Sri Gaur Purnima ki. Gaur Premanandi.
Hare Krishna, everyone. Happy Gopurnima. I know it's almost over. I think we can do better than that. Round of applause. A big round of applause for His Holiness Prabhupada Swami. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Maharaj, for your association and wonderful classes we've had for the last 4 days. Really appreciate your coming to Shri Radha Madhav Haridham and spending so much time with our congregation. We really appreciate that. So we were not